controlled you with cancer and AIDS. If fear exists, then you probably would have been saved. Sad to see medicine, divorce, morality. We ready? Deep in the trenches, in the heart of a war, that's the place a martyr is born. Motherfucker is on. Now when I say that's the place a martyr is born, I want to hear y'all say, motherfucker is on. Let's try it. You ready? You ready? You sure? You sure? Drop it!
When you look at the justice system here, it's based off money, right? Yeah. Like when I go to the prisons and I talk to the kids, I tell them, yeah, okay, you guys divide yourselves by race, right? You got the Aryans here, you got the Latino gangs and black gangs, whatever it may be, in prison for survival. But the reality is that though you may divide yourself by race, you're united by class. And that means that if any of you in this fucking room had a $10 million lawyer, you wouldn't be here. Yeah. And it always begs the question from the smartest kid in class, who raises his little hand and will say, well, Mr. Cornell, what happens when you find a millionaire in prison? And I say, well, he's the guiltiest motherfucker here because he had the $10 million lawyer, and not even that could get him out of this. Yeah. So I think that at some point when you look at it, what it's actually doing, it doesn't perpetuate the idea that they're going to reform people. It's a system of punishment, of crime and punishment, like the book. You know, we're not talking about reforming. When it's at the juvenile stage, you still see evidence of the state at least attempting to give the illusion it's trying to reform people. Yeah. But once a child gets to be 17, there's no reform in the government's mind, right? Like, for example, in New York City, if you're a child and you are arrested for prostitution, you're put into prison where you're going to get victimized again, when in reality, the vast majority of children who become prostitutes are forced into that life. They're sold out by their parents. Like, I think people watching this, imagine if your parents sold you, you know? Like, I don't have that experience. Yeah, I've been through a lot of fucked up things in my life, but my mother loved me. You know what I mean? Like, I know my mom gave a fuck about. Maybe, you know, I got kicked out the house and she brought me back. I did a lot of stupid things, but my mother loved me. Imagine if your parents sold you. Imagine if your parents were the ones pimping you. That's the situation that most of these children are in. And the reality is, brother, that when they get arrested, they're thrown into the system as if they're not a victim of the system themselves. So I think there has to be some distinction made within the modern lexicon of American politics about the people who are in the system but are victims of the system, not just in the system because they did something wrong. They didn't do shit wrong. They were born and then they were taken advantage of as children. You didn't do a fucking thing wrong. That's not your fault, my nigga. That's disgusting, though, that the state makes no distinction between that, or makes a minimal distinction because it doesn't want to deal with the repercussions of a goddamn lawsuit. They don't care about the morality. They care about a lawsuit. They don't want money being taken out of their pocket. But kids getting raped, that's not the problem.
Yeah.
Sickness.
The thing I noticed up there tonight, you were talking about like the drugs and like slapping the needle out of your arm and shit like that. Right. Like, why? Say like Jay-Z and these guys, they don't use drugs, but why don't they they don't press that message? And it's,
well, okay, I'll put it like this. To me, it's funny because I hang around with a guy named Swave Seva a lot, right? And he said some real shit to me one time. He goes, you know what? Weed was never a gateway drug for me. And I said, yo, you know, you're absolutely right, my G. I got high and I never felt like taking Special K or smoking crystal meth. These things never crossed my mind. I was never like, hey, I'm high. How can I lose my entire fortune and my family? Like, how can I get so high that I alienate all the people I love from me and kick the woman that I care about out of my life, kicking and screaming because she doesn't want to be with a drug addict? Like, when you examine that thing, you realize just how debilitated and fucked up people are because of these drugs. And the sad reality, brother, is that most of the drugs that they're on that really fuck their life up are totally legal, according to this system. And it's sad because you can't be a drug dealer here unless you're a drug dealer for them. If you work for pharma, if you work for Pfizer, you could be a drug dealer all day, fam. And you could dress like this, or with a fucking suit. Go up to someone and say, hey, we're selling these particular pills, we have a special on this in the catalog, and people will cop, they will buy. They're a pill to make people's hair grow back. They're a pill to make people pay attention when they can't pay attention. They're a pill to help people go to sleep. They're a pill to get your dick hard when you're a fucking old man. There's a pill your eyesight comes back. It's a drug for everything. And the sad reality is that when you look at something as benign as marijuana, I don't know anybody, and it's really because of a cultural stigmatism. Like, my grandparents will be like, hey, you know, why would you smoke? And like, that's not good. And I'm like, But let me ask, how many people go out and get trashed and go home and beat their wives while they're drunk versus how many people get high and go home and fall asleep? How many people get in a car and get drunk and kill someone versus people who get high and drive 20 miles an hour to fucking Taco Bell because they have the munchies at 4 o'clock in the morning? It's just not fair to compare those two fucking things like that. The other shit that I really have a fucking problem with is there's no history about why marijuana was made illegal. There's no historical context to why our society is structured in that way. It's just accept that this is bad. Why should I accept this is bad if you haven't even accepted that alcohol does terrible things to people, makes them violent, disagreeable, fucking irresponsible people? And not to say that weed does anything, but I've seen it cure racism in a couple of instances, you know?
Yeah.
I've seen marijuana cure racism. People getting high that don't really like each other, and then they're just high and they realize, hey, let's get a pizza. And everyone's like, yeah, hey, cool. And I will forget that you don't like me, and I don't like you, and we're chill, no anxiety. I'm not saying it's a cure-all, but when you ignore the properties that it has, and then you want to label something like Prozac a miracle drug, you sound like a fucking moron.
And
I can't take it seriously.
All those people shooting shit up, that's all Prozac. All but like 6 cases, they're all.
Well, how about this? There's synthetic heroin, right? I mean, you look at some of the drugs that are out now in pill format. That's heroin, and the sad part is the people who have slipped back into doing heroin are sometimes, and it's become. I'm not saying this is the majority. I would never make that claim, but there is a significant statistic of people who use heroin because they cannot afford painkillers.
Yeah, that's the thing out here.
Veterans, there are people who have severe injuries and they can't afford any of these fucking $32 a pill drugs. So what do? They score a $10 bag of smack that lasts them fucking 2-3 days that they're gonna shoot up because little by little they get addicted to it. Before you know it, they're a fucking dope head.
Yeah.
And they're doing it because, God bless their soul, they're in some excruciating pain that I can't identify. I don't know what it's like to have bone splinters. I don't know what it's like to have all these debilitating diseases. I can't even imagine what it would be like to be in pain from MS or from any of these other diseases, Lou Gehrig's disease, these horrible diseases that people have where they're in physical, excruciating pain. And the only thing that they have to available to them because they don't have money is this horrible shit that takes away your pain momentarily.
Yeah.
Those people I have a mild amount of sympathy for. But people that just get in the game and then they fuck around and throw their life away, it's like, it just reminds me that talent is one of the things I've seen the most in my life. Like when people told me they're talented, that doesn't impress me. If they're organized and talented, now you're impressive. It's like saying, oh, she's pretty. I guess it's cool, sure. She's smart. Oh, okay. I do salute,
That's what I was saying to them. It's like the makeup. Like girls nowadays wear more makeup than I've ever seen before. And it's like with our culture so made up now. It's like nothing. It's all. Well,
I mean, guys wear makeup too.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Every how about this? Every dude you see on TV, except me right now, is wearing makeup. You know what I mean? If you ever seen the debates, the presidential debates? I mean,
shellac.
Yo, dude, it looked like he had like a layer. Like I see Donald Trump's face. I'm like, damn, what did they do to you? Like, did someone just weld a clown mask onto your face? Like, what? Whatever. But that's not the point. I think that, in the sense that those questions about drugs remain unanswered in our society, and people who are addicted to the drugs or use them to self-medicate are totally demonized is part of the problem in terms of putting people in prison, which relates back to